Celebrations take place around the world. 2022 was ushered in under the shadow of the COVID pandemic, which has now entered a third year. He made his Europhile views a key part of his political campaign when winning the presidency in 2017. Now Emmanuel Macron is taking the reins as de facto leader of the bloc as France takes over the rotating presidency of the European Council. And South Africa bids farewell to the last great hero of the struggle against apartheid as thousands gather for the funeral of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who helped bring to an end the racist regime in his beloved Rainbow Nation. Welcome to France 24. I'm Sharon Gaffney. Good to have you with us. Well, it was a case of déjà vu for many around the world as the new year was ushered in with scaled-back celebrations in cities from Sydney to Paris to New York. Events took place under the shadow of the COVID pandemic, which has now entered a third year. Luke Schrago has the story.
An explosion of light above Sydney Harbour as Australia rings in the new year. However, for the second year in a row, the coronavirus pandemic has cast its long shadow over celebrations, with many places like New Zealand opting for a more muted affair without the fireworks in Auckland. A similar story in France too, where small crowds of pedestrians headed for Paris's Champs-Élysées, despite the lack of traditional fireworks as the Eiffel Tower sparkled. Moscow, on the other hand, saw in 2022 with a display above the city's Red Square, though under restrictions of its own, empty of people. Greece too saw a quieter new year than in times past, though fireworks over the Acropolis gave the city's residents a moment to mark the occasion. Taiwan too marked the moment for 20,000 spectators with a 6-minute display and a concert to boot. Things almost seemed more normal in North Korea, where the virus, officially at least, has spread little and huge crowds turned out in Pyongyang to celebrate. Further north in China, a light display was the order of the night across Beijing's Olympic Tower, elegant in its simplicity. Though another tower, this one, Dubai's Burj Khalifa, and the tallest in the world, blasted fireworks into the sky as 2022 made its entrance.
Shortly after Times Square rang in the new year, the city held a ceremony to swear in its new mayor. Democrat Eric Adams now faces a big challenge in steering his way through the pandemic, where record numbers of COVID cases are being driven by the Omicron variant. At France 24, here's Nick Rushworth with the details.
I, Eric Adams,
do solemnly swear
that I will support the
A new mayor for New Yorkers.
support the Constitution.
New Year in Times Square saw Eric Adams sworn into the job of pulling the city out of the pandemic. New York is currently grappling with record numbers of COVID-19 cases driven by the Omicron variant.
We can't shut down our city again. We can't allow the city to go further into economic despair, and I'm going to put in place a comprehensive plan.
New York has had more than 40,000 cases of COVID per day in recent days. Adams says he will keep a vaccine requirement for private sector employers, a measure implemented by predecessor Bill de Blasio. He says the focus will remain one of reducing inequality when it comes to the distribution of antiviral pills.
When these pills become available for mass distribution, we're going to ensure that it is done in an equitable fashion. We saw at the beginning of COVID, there was a failure to have an equitable distribution of testing and equitable distribution of vaccinations. We're not going to do this with these antivirals.
The 61-year-old son of a house cleaner was a former New York City police captain before going into politics. He has described himself as the future of the Democratic Party. Other challenges for him include unemployment in New York, which is near 10%, and violent crime, which is currently higher than before the COVID outbreak.
Rather than ringing in the new year, hundreds of people in the US state of Colorado have been trying to salvage what remains of their homes after a wildfire tore through the suburbs of Denver. At least 500 properties were destroyed by the blaze, which forced tens of thousands of people to flee.
Surveying the ruins amid the ash and the wreckage, after a wildfire ripped through part of Colorado to the northwest of Denver.
My parents' house, and it's gone.
Winds gusting up to nearly 170 kilometers per hour spread the fire over some 6,000 acres, roughly 24 square kilometers, with the fire spreading so fast as to leapfrog areas, leaving blazes in the pattern of a mosaic.
And it's really weird because one side of the street's totally burned out and the other side's okay and perfect.
It's thought downed power lines may have started the fire, with tinder-dry conditions left in the wake of a dry autumn and a winter that's seen little snow so far. As the blaze spread, it forced tens of thousands to evacuate, often with just minutes' notice and nothing but the clothes on their backs.
This is our community, and to watch it burn so quickly, so unexpectedly, is something that I think we're all just struggling to believe and understand. So different than fires that over a period of weeks and months develop. This played out with 105-mile winds over the course of half a day.
Nearly 1,000 homes have been left in ruins, and infrastructure is still under strain, with residents under orders to boil water before drinking it. According to Colorado's governor, President Joe Biden has approved a measure freeing up funding to help people get back on their feet.
In other world news, France has taken over the rotating presidency of the European Council, giving Emmanuel Macron the chance to take the reins as the de facto leader of the bloc just months before voters here go to the polls. In a televised address, the French president detailed an ambitious agenda that could also serve his domestic campaign for re-election. He said that 2022 should be a turning point for the EU. Let's hear some more of what the French president had to say in that New Year's Eve address.
You can count on my complete commitment to ensure that this period, which occurs only every 13 years, is a time of progress for you, a time of progress towards controlling our borders, our defences, climate transition, equality between men and women, the construction of a new alliance with the African continent, a better framework of internet platforms and culture in Europe. Yes, the values that our European Union carries with it, democracy, the balance between freedom and solidarity, a certain notion of humanity are, I am convinced, what will allow us to rise to the challenges of our times.
Staying here in France, where plastic packaging on most fruit and vegetables is now banned under a new law that came into effect at midnight on New Year's Day. The measures aimed at reducing pollution will also prevent manufacturers from destroying certain clothing, hygiene and furniture products that haven't been sold. Solange Moujon has the details.
From clothing to shampoo to baby gear and to tech. These are just some of the products that will no longer be directly trashed. If in stores, they're never sold. That's thanks to a new French law that's gone into effect.
Je pense que c'est une excellente idée. Excellente idée que de gâcher. Quand on voit tout ce qu'on produit, si on peut éviter le gâchis et d'incinérer alors qu'il y a des gens qui font rien pour s'habiller. Tous les jours, on voit des gens qui font des poubelles, qui fouillent avec des caddies, des poussettes, qui mettent tout ce qu'ils peuvent trouver dans des poussettes et pendant ce temps-là, les entreprises brûlent, enterrent, jettent.
Around 4 billion euros worth of goods, that's not including food, go unsold every year in France. And 15% of that, or over 600 million euros worth of new goods, go up in smoke or are buried in landfills. Now, a French law requires that such goods be donated to charity, sold to discounters, or be recycled. And for this food pantry, the law will be a huge help, as they've often had to buy essential products like shampoo and soap.
Les produits d'hygiène, bon là il n'y a pas grand-chose pour l'instant parce qu'on a besoin de faire un réassort, mais voilà, c'est des produits qu'on achète aussi parce que c'est des produits très demandés. Je pense que cette loi va inciter encore plus d'autres entreprises, leur donner l'idée de donner et de plus détruire, parce que c'est vrai que plus de 3 millions de Français n'ont quand même pas accès à des produits de première nécessité, de produits d'hygiène.
Businesses can be fined up to €15,000 if they don't follow the new environmentally friendly rules.
The funeral service for the tireless anti-apartheid campaigner Archbishop Desmond Tutu has taken place at the cathedral in Cape Town, where for years he preached against racial injustice. Thousands of mourners turned out to pay their final respects to the Nobel Peace Prize winner, whose life was celebrated during a requiem mass. Well, for more on the service, we've been speaking with Nadine Theron, our correspondent in Cape Town.
It was a requiem mass, a very religious service, not political at all, and the eulogy delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa was in fact the only speech that was part of the service. President Cyril Ramaphosa noted that the Archbishop would have made some jokes to cheer up the unhappy faces today, but it was quite a solemn affair. President Cyril Ramaphosa referred to the Arch's fight for the voiceless, being the voice of the voiceless, and always standing up for the oppressed and the marginalized, whether it's the LGBTQI community, Palestinians, and even the environment was one of the Arch's causes at the end of his life. And President Cyril Ramaphosa said that was why the Arch was such a wonderful man, because he took his mandate from God. He was very apolitical, and that's why his funeral was also very apolitical and small, intimate affair, very simple and not ostentatious at all. The Arch's body has left the cathedral now, and the guests have departed. We spoke to one of his close friends, Dr. Rampela Mampele, also an anti-apartheid activist, and she said that this is the way funerals should be. It shouldn't be a show the way it has become. It should be simple, and there shouldn't be such money wasted on putting up a production like it's sometimes done, and money should rather be used to help the people of South Africa. We saw Archbishop Desmond Tutu's children pay their final respects to him just before his coffin left the area. His daughters looking very solemn and walking away they are going to the funeral home where his remains will now be cremated. He will be undergoing an aqua cremation, which is the most environmentally friendly way to go. As he was an eco warrior, the Arch wanted his body to be disposed of this way. It's quite a new way to do things, and then his ashes will be interred in the cathedral later by his family in a private ceremony, as he didn't want to be buried in what he called an apartheid cemetery.
Finally, for now, US President Joe Biden has led the tributes to Golden Girl star Betty White, who's died just weeks before turning 100. The trailblazing Emmy-winning actress was a TV mainstay for more than 6 decades. Olivia Salazar-Winspear has been taking a look back at her career.
At our age, we really have to think about our health. Doctors say a glass of wine a day can extend your life. Cheers. Looks like we're going to live forever.
That might not have come to pass, but she certainly lived to a ripe old age. Actress Betty White has died just a couple of weeks shy of her 100th birthday after 7 decades on screen in a career that gained her fans all over the world, including the current residents of the White House.
She was a lovely lady. Only one.
Who didn't love Betty White? We're so sad about her death.
99 years old.
Yeah.
As my mother would say, God love her.
Yeah.
As one of the few female pioneers in broadcasting, she made her mark in the business in the 1950s and went on to pick up 8 Emmys, 1 Grammy and 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards. Celebrated most notably for her subtle wit and comic timing as Rose in the 1980s sitcom The Golden Girls, she'd overseen the evolution of her medium.
I think the biggest change is in the audience. Remember, when we started 50 years ago, it was a brand new thing, and they'd watch anything. They'd watch a test pattern, and it would get laughs. But the audience, and it's such a voracious appetite that TV has.
Yet despite the age gap, White had rare intergenerational appeal as today's teens and 20-somethings discovered her classic TV shows and shared their appreciation on her social media channels. At age 88, she became the oldest host of comedy sketch show Saturday Night Live, bringing Betty White a whole new fan base who now bid her an affectionate goodbye.
Well, that's it from us for now, but do stay tuned to France 24.
Hand in hand, Fanny and Patrick returned for the first time to the place they once called home.